Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at a deeply disturbing and honestly entirely tragic sequence of events out of Salina, Texas. It's known as the Mabel Family Enigma. This is a story that starts with unimaginable heartbreak, descends into just absolute pitch-black isolation, and then ultimately, it completely defies any logical explanation. So let's look at the evidence. Picture this. It's the night of February 27th, 1994, right around 9:30 p.m. The Salina Police Department starts receiving a chilling series of communications. But here's the thing. When the dispatcher picks up the line, they aren't met with someone frantic and screaming for help, or even, heavy breathing. They are met with dead, absolute silence. And this wasn't just a one-off glitch in the system. Exactly 4 completely silent emergency calls hit the dispatchers within just a single hour. By that 4th call, the dispatcher is understandably frustrated, right? So they warn this silent caller that officers are en route. They trace the location, and the address points to a remote 13-acre estate, a property that literally everyone in town believed had been completely empty and abandoned for years. Which brings us to Section 1, the Mabel Family Tragedy. A dream home turns into a nightmare. Okay, so to really understand the impossible events of 1994, we have to step back and look at the history of this house. Back in 1984, Travis and Olivia Mabel moved to this massive villa on a 13-acre farm. They wanted to escape the city, raise their young son Aiden, live the dream. And life was perfectly normal right up until March 13th, 1990. 7-year-old Aiden was playing outside by himself, and Olivia ended up finding his lifeless body in a small natural pond right there on their property. It was a horrific, accidental drowning. And as you can probably imagine, the sheer guilt and grief from that day just shattered the marriage. It led to a really bitter divorce. Travis moved away, and that left a grieving mother entirely alone on this massive, completely quiet estate. So by September of 1991, Olivia basically ceased all contact with the outside world. She stopped leaving the property. She wouldn't talk to neighbors coming by to offer condolences. Eventually, she even stopped getting groceries delivered to her porch. The lights in the house went permanently dark. The doors just never opened. And the locals, seeing this total, absolute withdrawal, well, they simply assumed she'd packed up and moved away to start over. For 2.5 years, there was absolute silence from the Mabel estate. Moving on to Section 2, the night of February 27, 1994, breaking down the door. Let's fast forward back to that freezing February night in 1994. 3 police officers, including one named Francesca Santiago, roll up to this desolate house to investigate those 4 silent 911 calls. The property is completely overgrown, and the wooden doors are so swollen from years of moisture and neglect that they literally had to bust down the jammed front door just to get inside. And what they found was this incredibly jarring contrast. The rest of the house was just consumed by absolute darkness, massive spider webs and 3 to 4 inches of thick dust blanketing everything. But then, they break through a locked door at the end of the hall and they find Aiden's bedroom. It was pristine, it was brightly lit, electricity somehow still running, and every single item was perfectly arranged. But hold on, because before they even found that room, out in the dark, decaying hallway, officers found the working landline phone, the exact same phone that had just dialed 911 4 times. And here is where it gets crazy. It was covered in an undisturbed thick layer of dust. There were absolutely 0 fingerprints on it, not a single footprint leading up to it in the dust on the floor. It literally looked like it hadn't been touched in years. So it really begs the question, who or what dialed the police? Let's get into Section 3, Tulpa and the scary truth. The altar in the corner. So, inside that pristine, brightly lit room, sitting in a chair, wearing slippers and a nightgown, was Olivia Mabel. She was deceased, and she was clutching this strange, intricately carved wooden doll. Authorities later figured out this was tied to the concept of a tulpa. If you're not familiar, a tulpa is this esoteric Tibetan practice of literally creating a being or an entity through sheer mental discipline and intense spiritual energy. The psychological trauma of losing her son had so completely engulfed Olivia that she totally rejected reality. It seems she was attempting this highly obscure, intense practice to manifest or somehow make contact with her deceased son. And the room? It wasn't just a perfectly preserved bedroom. It was a full-blown shrine. Opposite Olivia's body was this massive altar built from pure grief. It had Aiden's photos, his toys, and hundreds, literally hundreds of desperate letters that Olivia had written to him over the years. And get this, investigators found that a ton of these letters actually contained complex Sanskrit text. This is a language she had somehow learned or at least deciphered while living in total pitch-black isolation for years. Among those hundreds of pages on the altar, they found this chilling final quote in her very last letter. It read, "I will not let you keep me, you vile, evil creature. Mom is coming for you, Aiden, my sweet Aiden." That line is terrifying, right? Because if Atolpa is created by intense, focused energy, her profound grief and psychological fixation might have actually inadvertently created something deeply malicious in her own mind. A vile, evil creature that she literally felt was trapping her in that house. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, Unsolved and Creepy Questions, the Impossible Timeline. Because the most disturbing part of this entire explainer is not just the tragic loss of a mother and son, or even that incredibly unsettling altar. It is the final paradox uncovered by the police and the medical examiners. A paradox that completely defies physical reality. The official autopsy revealed that Olivia Mabel actually died of dehydration and starvation roughly 4 months before the police even arrived. 4 months! Yet the emergency 911 calls were traced to the house on February 27, 1994. And that final terrifying letter we just talked about on the altar, it was clearly dated, in her own handwriting, February 27, 1994, the exact same day the silent calls were made. And just to reiterate, no fingerprints, no footprints anywhere near that heavily dusted phone. So that brings us to the end of our analysis, and we are just left staring at a total logical impossibility. We have a mother completely isolated by grief, an altar dedicated to manifesting the dead, a phone that dials out with 0 fingerprints, and a freshly dated letter written by a woman who had already been gone for months. Was this just the heartbreaking final echo of a profound psychological breakdown that completely distorted reality? Or is it something truly beyond our scientific grasp? I leave you to ponder this final haunting question. How do you explain the impossible timeline?